Today on CityCast DC. The writer Dorothy Parker once said that the two most beautiful words in the whole English language are check enclosed. With things being so expensive in DC right now, maybe a little check in your mailbox is just what you need. Ike Allen of the Washingtonian explains how DC's unclaimed property unit could have money waiting for you. Today is Monday, October 20th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. Ike, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Bridget. Thank you for having me.
So I think it's kind of an interesting time to be talking about unclaimed property because things are, as I'm sure everyone listening knows, expensive. For folks who don't know, what exactly is unclaimed property?
Yeah, I personally learned about this because I was looking for just like random sources of a few extra bucks. And I was doing just a little kind of Googling. And I was honestly kind of like between paychecks at the time when I found out about this. And basically, unclaimed property is checks, funds from a bank account, sometimes other sources of money that you have that are yours, that are sitting kind of in the possession of your local state or district, in this case, DC government. And they're required to basically be turned over to the government by financial institutions after a certain period of time where they've been sitting unclaimed or untouched. So if you've forgotten about like your last paycheck from an old job or like an old savings account you may have forgotten about or something, your government probably has it, your local like state or district government. So I found out about this in DC, plugged my name in. You just put in your last name and first initial on this unclaimed property website in DC, and found out that I had, it wasn't much. It was a little over $50.
That's still money. That's a bill.
Money is money,
Have you heard any examples of folks finding out that they had more than $50, where they found out that they had a decent amount of money out there waiting for them to claim?
Yeah, so there was a news story about a nonprofit in Virginia that I think found like more than $45,000. There also was when I called up DC's office, DC's unclaimed property office, they told me about an unclaimed estate that someone found. It was an estate of a deceased relative that was worth a total of $4.5 million, and it was returned through unclaimed property through this service. The person found out about it through this website.
Wow, that is a life-changing amount of money.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. The reality is, when you look up a name, most of the time, a lot of the checks are like, they say under $50 because they don't actually publish the exact amount until you inquire about it. But you can see whether it's under 50 or over 50. So the majority of them seem to be under $50, that at least anecdotally. But I think, you never know. Never hurts to check.
Okay, so you're pouring cold water on my fantasies of becoming a secret millionaire, but how much money is out there in DC?
So in 2024, the unclaimed property unit returned a little bit over $35 million to people. That was in the form of, divided over 39,000 different checks, items, physical items in some cases, accounts. And so it comes in many forms, but that was the total value of it in 2024. It's a little bit difficult to find out the total amount they're holding. That was sort of one of the challenges of the story, and that's true in other states too. The DC and various states don't necessarily always know, or at least they're not able to tell the public exactly how much the total amount is that they're holding in unclaimed property, which is frustrating to some people.
How does DC run their unclaimed property center?
Well, so basically, a bank, more often than not, it's a bank, but sometimes it's a safe deposit box or some other financial institution reports the amount and basically turns it over to the unclaimed property unit. And it's actually an office. There's a physical office and a physical vault that they have that is in Southwest DC. Lynn Hall, who's the head of the department, was showing me that in their vault they have some kind of unusual items, including some that they're not able to. Some items they auction off eventually after a certain period of time has gone by. In the case of a few things like bottles of alcohol or that are worth a lot of money, or Hall also showed me a fan that they had that was inlaid with ivory, which, because that's contraband, they're not allowed to auction it off. Things like that they have in this vault. They also have other sort of items of value that they're eventually going to auction off. And then, basically they do try to, prevent these things from languishing by sort of sending out notices. They put inserts in local newspapers. They do some outreach at senior centers and stuff like that. But they don't necessarily proactively send you a notice that you have money waiting for you. Some states do this, but DC doesn't. So you do kind of have to proactively go on and check, but once you do, you might be pleasantly surprised.
When they do these auctions, where does the money go?
The money goes back to the owner. So in the case of, let's say there was a safety deposit box and the person passed away. It's a little bit like it has this sort of sad quality, like an estate sale of all these belongings that they're looking through that belong to someone who's no longer with us. And sometimes the items that they're able to auction off, they do. And then that money goes back into an account that is held in perpetuity for the descendant or the person who's able to claim that money, the heir basically to that money. So they do, if you have reason to believe that, a loved one's belongings were auctioned off by unclaimed property, you do have, you should get in touch with them because they hold on to the money. It doesn't go anywhere.
Mark the date. This November 8th in D.C., join the National Center for Victims of Crime for its 40th anniversary gala. It's an evening of celebration and sparkle, with dinner and a silent auction filled with one-of-a-kind treasures. Raise a glass with friends, honor champions of hope, and help make sure life-changing support for crime survivors remains accessible. Join NCVC for an unforgettable night of connection and purpose, all while supporting services that make a real difference in your community. Go to victimsofcrime.org/40 today to grab your tickets and join us for this unforgettable night. That's victimsofcrime.org/40. When someone else's negligence changes your life forever, figuring out what to do next can feel overwhelming. You need lawyers who won't back down. NACE Law Group has been winning serious injury and wrongful death cases in D.C. for decades. They don't just settle, they fight for real justice. And they're not afraid to take cases to court to get it. Because when you're facing medical bills, lost wages, and unimaginable pain, good enough isn't good enough. You might remember them as Paulson and Nace. It's the same trusted lawyers, just a new name. If you need someone in your corner, reach out to NACE Law Group for a free, no-obligation consultation. Visit WashingtonDCLawyers.com or call 202-463-1999. That's 202-463-1999. How do you check to see if you might have unclaimed property in DC? You mentioned a website, but take me through it.
Yeah, so you visit unclaimedproperty.dc.gov, and it'll prompt you to put in your last name and first initial, and there might be a bit more info you can provide to narrow it down, address, stuff like that. And then you scroll through the results. And DC is not a huge place population-wise, so there's a good chance you'll if you don't have a super common last name, you'll probably find yourself pretty quickly if you have any unclaimed property. My name popped up pretty quickly. And then, once you try to claim it, you basically just check it off, send your request to claim it through the website. It's pretty straightforward. And then they'll ask you to send in some proof of identification and bank statement or something if it was from a bank account, and they'll they'll send it to you. Kind of feels like printing money, honestly, but it does take a little effort and a little kind of proof of ID and stuff like that.
So I had looked at to see if I maybe was on here a while ago. And as you were laying out how to do this, I was like, well, let me just check again. I put my information in and I see two new, I guess, whatever you call them, entries that both say over $50. So I don't know, maybe this is my last episode of CityCast DC. Maybe I'm about to come into millions of dollars and y'all will never hear from me again.
I would love an update on this, but maybe I'll just never hear one. Maybe you'll be on an island somewhere.
If you never hear from me again, just assume I became a quiet secret millionaire.
Way over $50.
Yeah, way over. So in your piece, you talked about the woman who was at the center of this, Lynn Hall. She's been doing this for over 40 years. What is she like?
She's kind of a character. She's really committed to this project. She says, she told me, like, this is the good part of government, because these laws which states passed sort of over the course of the latter half of the 20th century. Different states did it at different times. DC, I think, passed their first unclaimed property law in 1980. But because of these laws, banks can't just sit on this money. Which is what they would definitely normally do a lot of the time. They have to report it, and then the states have to report it to the rightful owners. So I mean, it's a good system to have in place to make sure, because it creates an incentive to be able to get a hold of the money that's rightfully theirs. I think she's really committed to that. She also has clearly done a fair amount of media in the past. When I talked to her, she had the most interesting items in their vault kind of ready to show me. I think it's kind of a favorite story for local news to remind people about, because they also do it. They also, Unclaimed Property kind of makes an effort to get this covered on local news because they want people to be aware of it.
So when I file my claims, how long will it take for me to get my millions?
It doesn't take long. It takes a matter of weeks. I think it depends a bit. Mine took, I think it was about 2 weeks. It wasn't long, but mine wasn't millions. So I don't know. We'll see how valuable yours is, and maybe there's more hoops you have to jump through if it's a huge amount of money. I'm actually not sure about that. For my kind of pretty modestly sized check, it was a couple of weeks.
What happens if you have unclaimed property that you want to get into the system? What would you do then?
I think this mostly applies to sort of institutions or, primarily banks and other kind of financial institutions that have this property. So the law doesn't apply to regular people, and I don't think you can go through this system.
So if some of these pieces of property do go unclaimed forever, let's say, what happens then?
So it depends on the type of item. Let's say there's an item in a safe deposit box that after 2 attempts to auction it, the Unclaimed Property Division cannot successfully auction it. And they have spent, Hall told me that they sometimes spend a couple of years then, even after that, trying to search for the owner. After a decade, so after 10 years, these things are photographed, or if it's a piece of paper, they're scanned, and then they're shredded or destroyed. That's after like a decade though, and at least two attempts to auction it. So they do try to kind of get the money out of it, and then if that doesn't work, it eventually gets destroyed. But it takes 10 years.
Is there anything else interesting about this topic that you want to share? I was pretty enthralled to hear about the, illicit ivory fan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if regular people ever get a chance to visit this vault, but it is a pretty interesting place. A variety of stuff that's in there. It's kind of like, the most oddball and unauctionable stuff from like hundreds of or thousands of estate sales. So it's just and they're all kind of sorted in boxes the way you'd see like if you've seen like detective shows, like an evidence file, an evidence room at a police station. It's a little like that. So it's kind of a crazy place. And then but in terms of the practical value of it, I mean, if you haven't heard of this, definitely look up your name, because I feel like there's a good chance you'll find something, especially if you lived in DC for a while and maybe moved, have a new address. there may be something waiting for you that you completely forgot about.
Well, the next time y'all hear from me, it'll be from my private villa. I hope.
Yeah. I'm genuinely curious. I wonder what those checks were for. Yeah, mine was. I had one from like Pepco that was really a little disappointing, but hopefully yours will be less disappointing.
Thanks so much for being here, Ike. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bridget. I really appreciate it.
That is all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. And become a CityCast DC member. I had a blast meeting so many of y'all at our last member event last week. So become a member today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.